So just yesterday, I was speaking about the restrictions, or rather the new. No, let's start over. Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right. So just yesterday, I made a video about some of the new restrictions and regulations that are being imposed by different states during the holidays, for the holiday season, regarding the beer bug and traveling. And I mentioned how there was a wedding, a Hasidic Jewish wedding. There's something like 7,000 people, and they were fined $7,000. I was very much wrong. It was $15,000. But on the heels of that, at about 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Supreme Court blocked restrictions that Cuomo was attempting to impose in terms of religious gatherings. Now, keep in mind, before Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed, and Amy Barrett, ABC, was admitted to the court, they had recently struck down attempts to try and get governors to lift restrictions on religious gatherings in particular, which then led to a lot of, underground weddings and funerals, which led to a lot of arrests and a lot of fines. Well, recently, they've allowed 50% capacity, but as I mentioned in the previous video, because as the election becomes more solidified, Biden seemingly is becoming more affirmed as the president-elect. Governors are moving forward with their plans. It isn't as though this has come out of the woodwork. This has definitely been under consideration for some time in case there was to be a second wave, and in case the second wave was to be as severe as it is, and then some. So it comes as no surprise that a now more conservative court has moved to block the decision in total. And one wonders then down the line whether or not you're going to see more of this, not only regarding Corona, but with other things, right? Because this is what people were afraid of. A more conservative SCOTUS will lead to more conservative decisions. This decision in particular, however, is almost libertarian in nature. It's the idea of respecting parts of the First Amendment wholeheartedly. No ifs, ands, or buts. Some would say that the Constitution is a living document that can be interpreted differently. But that's the idea of amending the Constitution. If there were to be something ratified and amended, then that's how the Constitution functions and changes according to the times. But reading the article here, the Supreme Court blocked strict COVID-19 restrictions on some New York houses of worship. The Supreme Court placed religious freedom before pandemic precautions Wednesday night, temporarily blocking recent rules in New York that severely restricted gatherings at houses of worship in areas hit hardest by COVID-19. The court's new, more conservative majority ruled 5-4 that Governor Andrew Cuomo's limits on churches, synagogues, and other houses of worship to 10 to 25 worshipers in hard-hit regions appeared to violate the First Amendment's free exercise clause. Even in a pandemic, the Constitution cannot be put away and forgotten, the court's unsigned majority opinion said. The restrictions at issue here, by effectively barring many from attending religious services, strike at the very heart of the First Amendment's guarantee of religious liberty. Now, let's put this in context for a second here. I mentioned that there were thousands, right? It's one thing to restrict gatherings, but it's another to take a look at thousands and thousands of people unmasked because that they do not adhere to any sort of modern technology or principles like that, Western principles like that. Unmasked, you can understand why there would be some attempt at trying to curtail large congregations, but we do have a constitutional battle at play. It was a reversal from earlier actions taken by the High Court in response to state restrictions on organized religion during the coronavirus pandemic. The justices previously refused to lift restrictions on churches in California and Nevada, with Chief Justice Roberts joining the court's four liberals in upholding state restrictions. But since then, Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died and was succeeded by Associate Justice Amy Coney Barrett, giving conservatives a 6-3 majority. Roberts and the 3 liberal justices dissented from Wednesday night's ruling. It is a significant matter to override determinations made by public health officials concerning what is necessary for public safety in the midst of a deadly pandemic, the Chief Justice said. He noted that the limits have changed even as the court was considering the 2 challenges. So the churches and synagogues now can hold services at 50% capacity. Giving again just a caveat here. And the lockdowns are supposed to be a last resort. I keep mentioning this. It's a bipartisan effort where you have the public at large, in highly volatile, high hit it's like 4 a.m. High hit areas of high infection rates, like those of the Hasidic neighborhoods. You see no impulse to try and conduct any sort of social distancing, to wear any sort of protective masks or gear or anything like that. On the flip side, you have the WHO and Dr. Fauci talking about lockdowns being a last resort only if we can get the public to participate in the measures required. So on the one hand, you wouldn't have constitutional violations if you could only have people do what they're supposed to. So, I definitely understand the constitutional argument. And it's like, well, if you can't get people to do what's in their best interest, how are you supposed to then do what's in their best interest by supporting the Constitution? It's definitely don't have answers at 4 a.m. But to continue, Associate Justice Neil Gorsuch took direct aim at Roberts' earlier opinion in the California case, arguing that ceding authority to elected officials takes judicial modesty too far. It is past time, to make plain that while the pandemic poses many grave challenges, there is no world in which the Constitution tolerates color-coded executive edicts that reopen liquor stores and bike shops but shutter churches, synagogues, and mosques. Valid. Associate Justice Stephen Breyer, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan emphasized the pandemic's impact on the nation and New York in particular. According to experts, the risk of transmission is higher when people are in close contact with one another for prolonged periods of time, particularly indoors or in other enclosed spaces. The nature of the epidemic, the spikes, the uncertainties, and the need for quick action taken together mean that the state has countervailing arguments based upon health, safety, and administrative considerations that must be balanced against the applicant's First Amendment challenges. And therein lies the issue. Public health versus First Amendment and the ability to express one's religious freedom. The New York restrictions announced in October were challenged by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn and Agudath Israel, an Orthodox Jewish congregation. They claimed Cuomo's order targeted houses of worship while treating secular institutions less stringently and allowing essential businesses to operate without restrictions. Businesses affect the economy, which is a cornerstone of any functioning city, town, state, country. So that's kind of a separate argument versus like secular institutions. Now, secular institutions, if there should be no sort of religious segregation here. Religious institutions and organizations should adhere to the public health policy that's being implemented for the sake of not only them but everyone else, or accommodate right accordingly. But talking about essential businesses, that's what I mean. Like, that's the idea of essential. So that argument, as far as that goes, it's kind of weak. The governor openly admitted that his executive order is a blunt policy being cut by a hatchet. Lawyers for the diocese wrote, "The pandemic alone cannot justify overbroad, untailored closure orders of indefinite duration directed at all houses of worship that in another time would plainly be found to violate the Constitution." The Orthodox Jewish organization said its members were being singled out for discriminatory targeting because of past violations of COVID-19 restrictions by some Orthodox Jews. It called that guilt by religious association. I feel like that's pretty weak as well. Singular targeting versus trying to restrict the efforts of mass congregations are two different things. The restrictions have eliminated the ability of any Jews to worship on important religious holy days. I mean, I'm not too familiar as far as Hasidic and Orthodox Jews and their practices, but do they have to practice in a temple? If not, none of this is necessary to protect public health. And so it does go on quite a bit. Oh no, we're almost done here. In response, State Solicitor General Barbara Underwood noted that New York was the national epicenter of the coronavirus epidemic in the spring and has seen more than 26,000 deaths, including over 16,000 in New York City alone. Okay, right. So, the argument is a valid one when it comes to religious practices and, the exercising thereof. But when it comes to public health, if you can't at least meet them halfway, what do you expect the reaction to be? That really is my assessment of it, my take of it, and my criticisms. Is what do you expect the reaction to be, and what do you expect the decision to be thereof from a conservative court if you can't meet anyone halfway as far as public health and safety is concerned? But yeah, we'll see where this goes. This is fresh, but like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing, and please share the video. Be well to each other. Take care.